The long-awaited four-seater, four-door Ferrari, something entirely new in the history of the prancing horse, would not be an SUV, and this was crystal clear from the moment the pencil hit the paper. Our aim was to create an innovatively architected sports car that could not be classified in any existing pigeonhole, says Flavio Manzoni, Ferrari's design chief. The Ferrari design team sees the Purosangue as the start of a new, exciting and successful era for the brand, and the result is a beautiful raised four-door coupe that is both elegant and powerful. Once the functionality of the car had been established, the Ferrari design team went to work giving this new type of package the Ferrari proportions and volumes that makes it a Ferrari, and that is not an easy task with this new type of package. Ferrari didn't get the memo that they should probably at least make it a hybrid, and instead went back in time to an era when turbos and electric motors were considered blasphemy in the Ferrari boardrooms. And as the name implies, the Purosangue is powered by a 725 horsepower naturally aspirated V12 engine, something I thought I would never see in a 2023 model, but here it is. Ferrari does not view it as an SUV, as I said, but rather as a big raised coupe on steroids with a front end that cleverly blends design and aerodynamics to reduce height. And what makes the Purosangue's design so unique in this segment is that the body of the car was intentionally made up of two layers to ensure harmony of volumes and athleticism. There is the upper body, which is the sculptural upper half of the car, the area that gives it the character, the personality and beauty of a Ferrari, and then you have the underbody, which is the darker area in the lower half, that's dedicated to technology, and this makes it look slimmer and sportier, almost like a sculpture suspended in midair, almost hovering over the wheel arches. And this effect is even made clearer by the stark contrast between the plastic cladding around the wheel arches and the bodywork. The back door is a masterpiece of engineering. It opens independently and in the opposite direction of travel thanks to a single super strong hinge in the middle that supports its weight and lets it open without making the wheelbase much longer. That's something that they wanted to keep the wheelbase pretty tight. The interior is surprisingly roomy judging by the exterior proportions. It also has some styling cues that lightens the volumes to emphasize the horizontal development. I also like that Ferrari decided to go with something pretty unique here, and that is the dual cockpit dashboard instead of the typical center screen that's in every other car. The materials used are luxurious but still environmentally friendly, with the roof and carpets, for example, being made out of recycled materials. Now, I talked about this design on my second channel. I made a video specifically on the new Purosangue when it was unveiled, but I think Ferrari did a fantastic job turning this into not an SUV, but something more of a, as I said earlier, a lifted coupe sports car, because they play around with graphics. I'm going to show you that more in detail when we look at the side view, how they managed to make this into almost two different cars and hide the weight of this design. I love the new treatment of the front end, and I really like the surfacing in the hood. Very smooth lines and very muscular, looking more like a coupe than an SUV. And this is of course very reminiscent of the Roma in a more higher form, sitting a little higher. And you can see that this grille in the bottom is a bit higher as well to build up this height to make it into a four-door SUV. Now, looking at the side view, this is where it gets really interesting, and some genius designs by the Ferrari design team to hide the weight of this car. We have a top half that houses all the muscle and all the sculpturing of this design, as you can see right here. This is the bottom part. You can see that there's really nothing going on in the surfacing of this part. We have a cut in this body, in this lower part of the body, to hide some of the weight and make the waist a little narrower and have it be more athletic looking. And in addition to that, we also have this graphic in the bottom, the black graphic, to further cut into this weight. And looking at the top half, this, if you just put this design, this shell onto a lower riding car, and stretch out the rear end and also make this a little steeper in this dip here, more of a sedan-like, I think it's gonna look like a really good sedan, and I'm gonna show you that redesign in just a second. Looking at the rear view, there has been some talk about these new taillights. I kind of like them. I think it's a new interpretation of the 4-round headlights that we have going back decades for Ferrari. But at the same time, it would be cool to see something like this, maybe, where we have the more traditional taillights, I mean, than we have in the SF90, the 296. I think it would be nice to see, specifically since you have an SUV. It's a brand new design, brand new package for Ferrari. So bringing back all the graphic details that we're used to seeing on Ferrari, I think that would help to have some details that we know for sure are related to Ferrari. But still, these look very cool and very slim and aggressive at the same time, but also a bit elegant, which I think Ferrari should be compared to, for example, Lamborghini. If I were in the market for either a Lamborghini Urus or a Ferrari Purosangue, my choice would be 100% Ferrari in this case. I do like the Lamborghini Urus, but I think it's more of a stylized design than it is a functional design, if that makes sense. Whilst Ferrari has always been the more elegant sibling. If you look at Lamborghini and Ferrari as siblings, Ferrari is the more calm, more sophisticated sibling, while the Lamborghini is the wild child that goes out and parties every night. They're both fun in two very different ways, and I think that is implemented or visualized in most of the designs of both of these brands, except for the F8 Tributo, which I've talked about before. Let's have a look at this redesign. Let's see what's going on here. As I said, the first time I saw the Purosangue, I knew it would look good as a lower sitting, lower riding sedan or coupe, or maybe even a shooting brake, but I wanted to keep the 5-door setup or the 4-door sedan setup in this design, which means we need to stretch out the wheelbase. We also definitely need to work on the proportions here, because having the same proportions as the SUV and just lowering it is not gonna look good, because SUVs have a completely different way of approaching proportions, wheelbase, than if you have a sedan. So that's something we definitely need to address here. And the roofline, how do we want to work with the roofline? Since it's gonna dip a little earlier, I want to add more body mass in the rear end of this car to have a larger overhang in the rear to make it look like a bigger sedan, a GT sedan. And since we have the Roma already, I knew that the front end graphics would work on a package like this, because to me, the Roma is going back to a design philosophy when Ferrari had this pure elegance of the 60s, specifically the 250 GTO and the 275s. I think Roma is a good modernization of that type of philosophy. So having that type of graphics that we basically have in the Purosangue, I knew that would gonna work on a sedan as well. I also moved up the Cavallino Rampante emblem on the fender, moved that up a little bit, because if we have it sitting where it sits in the Purosangue, it sits a little too low. Since we're lowering the entire car, we need to move that emblem up a little bit. And I think the biggest challenge here with this redesign was to work on the rear end and have that roofline smoothly and elegant way go into the rear end, and also how much more mass do we want to add in the rear to make it look proper, like a proper sedan in its proportions. And another detail that I was thinking of removing was the lower section of this car. We have in the side view this black graphic going into the body, but I wanted to keep that just to make sure that people understand that this is a sedan based on the Purosangue. So I want to have some of the Purosangue's graphic features still intact, even though it's not 100% necessary here to reduce the height graphically as much as you would have if you have an SUV. You want to cut the lower part and make it look slimmer. We don't really need that graphic here in this sedan design, but I wanted to keep that just to have that connection still to the Purosangue. In addition to that, I wanted to add a front lip and a side skirt and a rear diffuser that brings the car even lower to the ground, in addition to removing the plastic cladding, or maybe it's carbon fiber on the Purosangue Purosangue that goes around the wheel arches, and also make the wheel arches more round instead of having almost like some angles, sharp corners in it. I want to have it be continuously round to make it look like a sedan. So that's my redesign of the Purosangue, turning it into a sedan, and I think it looks absolutely fantastic. I want to see Ferrari build something like this. I also decided at the last minute to change the wheels into something more of, not so aggressive looking wheels, more elegant looking wheels, because I think this is an elegant design. Should Ferrari build this? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video.